Hey, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to another exciting episode of the Patient Advocacy Show. This one is sponsored by Wayfinder Advantage. We'll click the reel and we'll get right into it.
It's if you weren't awake, you just woke up. I still can't get the WWF out of my mind on that. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Wednesday's Advocacy Chat. I'm Dr. Andrea, a pharmacist with 30 years experience that is now expanded into patient advocacy. With me is my co-host, Kevin Walker, pharmacist extraordinaire on the West Coast, also co-founder of RPH Ally, where we're coming from today. And today we are talking about aging well. It's kind of a lead into a two-part. So this week and next, aging well, and part of that, to me, is travel. And I don't know about Kevin. Have you thought about that before, about how traveling is a component of aging well?
You know, it's so funny, Andrew, right before we got on the show, we were talking about like what the subject was. And so immediately aging well to me was this. Like me thinking, okay, here's set point theory, like here's inactive individuals, here's slightly active, here's very active individuals, and like how you prep yourself for being successful for aging. So when you said travel, I was like, that's fantastic. Like you stay excited about the next adventures you're going into. So that was funny. That's why I brought up that graphic earlier, because that's immediately what I thought of.
Well, you know what's interesting about that is, and I also shared a link with you. So this is what I think is so beautiful about these sessions and why this is a two-parter. And let's be real, it could be 6 hours. I could talk this all day. But go to what I sent you. So I sent you the trends of travel in 2023. So in our minds, because I'm thinking, aging well is about, not allowing others to define your ability to be able to check off things off of a bucket list, not be sidelined because some other person's perception is that you couldn't handle it. And so to me, that's aging well, is being able to own your body and do what you want. And if that means taking a world cruise, how do we get you on it? And so, everything that you shared is incredibly relevant. And then what do you do with that? It's more than the grocery store, although that's important, it's more.
It's so much more. And it's so funny that you bring it up. I was like, that makes so much sense, because all my family that stayed active, they do more vacationing and more traveling and seem happier in their retirement. And it's like, what a wonderful combo.
Right. And that's a great segue, because one of the reasons why, for folks that, that don't follow me and don't know why traveling is so important, or some of my background, my mom was diagnosed with cancer when I was 34. So I guess that would be about 20 years ago. And she loved to travel. I mean, this was a woman who would send her clothes, UPS, to the ski resort so that she could change the clothes as she was skiing for the couple of weeks. And she didn't learn how to ski until she was in, I want to say, her early 50s, late 40s. And so she adored travel. She worked for an airline. And this, the whole goal, right? You're going to live long enough to be able to retire, to be able to travel. That was her mind. And then she was diagnosed with inflammatory breast cancer at 58. And it was like, oh shit. Not only if they tell me I only have 6 weeks to live, and, all this time that I thought I had, I don't. And so she ended up surviving the treatments, which was phenomenal. We had 9 months. She had 9 months of treatments. And the minute she got out of treatment, the first thing she wanted to do was to take her brand new grandbaby to Disney. And then on the plane back, she's like, do you think we could take a cruise? And of course, I'm breaking out in a complete sweat because, I already thought that she was going to die at Disney 1 week out of her last chemo. And now I'm going to take her on a 12-day cruise, 1 month later. And so while I was on that boat, it was really my moment to reassess my whole career, because I had been working, give me another day of, let me take the overtime, work 21 days in a row because I work night shift. Sure. What the hell? I'll retire at 42 and then I'll do whatever I want to do in my life that's fun. And all of a sudden I'm like, wait a second, this could all end. And it was sitting on the back of that boat with my mom looking at the ocean for well spouts, not that we really expected to see any, that it occurred to me that, one, I needed to look up from the bench and look at my life differently. And two, the power that travel had on her to make it through. what she had just went through. And I can tell you the 4.5 years that she lived before brain cancer took her, she walked the Champs-Elysees. She went to the homeland in Poland. She traveled the Caribbean. She went, she came to my wedding in Mexico. I mean, this woman was unstoppable. And so when I went into advocacy, to me, one aspect of my advocacy is helping folks and, empowering tools, strategy, however you want to look at it, to live beyond what those preconceived perceptions might be.
Wow. That is super inspiring, Andrea, and really connects dots for me on who my friend is across the screen and an inspiration she's had in her life. I mean, we're all inspired by our mamas in one way or another, but that is an amazing story. I had one thing that when you're talking about it, I always wonder the statistics, and this is something I just saw, Andrea, that I thought you'd like.
Oh, wow.
Look at those.
Yeah.
I mean, over an 11% increase in mood and outward appearance for those that are travelers, and a physical health and well-being increase of over 15%. That's from Medium. So I just thought, man, your mama was a very wise woman on prioritizing what she did.
Well, and if you think about it, it makes complete sense. Yes, wanting to get into a pair of jeans, I don't diminish the impact of looking a certain way or having a goal, let's say a wedding, or to show up, with a certain physical outward appearance. I don't diminish that, and that can be something important. I also think that, in terms of being a healthcare provider, oftentimes this kind of struggle with the language, but we, particularly as clinicians, it's like you want to lose weight, you want to be more active to run away from insert disease, right? You don't want to lose your kidneys to diabetes, therefore you should be healthier. You don't want to fall and fracture a hip, therefore, get on a rebounder, right? Everything in healthcare, well, many times in healthcare, it's to run away from some perceived risk, right? Yeah. Which may or may not happen that they don't perceive, because it hasn't happened yet, right? As opposed to running towards something. And so if we're running towards the ability to do something, get on a boat. And I can tell you, I just came back from spending 4 days with my uncle, and he was the youngest in the family. And I mean, you want to talk about the 2x4 across the head that reminds you that as clinicians, we can develop very skewed ideas of aging because we've talked. I worked in, the past 15 years has been focused in geriatrics. So, I did 7 years as a consultant in long-term care, SNF, hospice, seeing folks at the end, right? And sometimes that end is pretty damn ugly, and painful and traumatic, right? And so you start to look at this myopically about this is what age looks like, right? And then you forget, like my uncle, when we were down on the beach, he left my husband, for the day. He's like, oh, I'm going to go do a bike ride. I'll be back in about 4 hours. And we come in and he's telling this story about seeing a guy in front of him. He wanted to catch him. So he passed him. And at the 11-mile mark, he decided to turn around. He comes back. My uncle at 70 is cranking out 22-mile bike rides regularly. He's active in tennis. He's always been active. Thank goodness he and his wife did retire early and start traveling because my aunt passed away this summer. But I'm sitting there and he's talking to my husband. And at one point he's like, yeah, I could drop and give you 10 right now if you wanted to see it, And I'm thinking he could kick my ass. Physical fitness. And he's got great muscle tone. He's lean, because to him, he doesn't go to the gym and lift weights for 30 minutes and then sit, on a sofa. To him, movement, activity, that is his fitness. And yes, now he is retired, so he has more time. But he was always weaving activity into his life. And that's how he got to where he is today, at 70, cranking out 20-mile bike rides pretty regularly.
Super inspiring, Andrea. And I know next episode, we are going to concentrate on the exact same thing, like look even deeper into travel. Because I think one fun thing is, going to incredible places is great, but just like that guide you showed me, you can do it very cheaply locally and still be inspired to go and take advantage of stuff that's right around you for inexpensive costs.
Exactly. And that's where, and that's why next week we're going to talk a little bit more about, like how I, as a pharmacist who's now an advocate, and then, by the way, a certified travel coach, how I weave that all together, because in my viewpoint, it is so much more than immunizations. Not again to diminish the fact that pharmacists do immunizations and that that is a viable business model, but there is so much more to it, to ensuring folks are, giving them the tools that they can to travel well. I can tell you, it isn't always about the exotic. When my dad had dementia, and we took him to the beach, intergenerational travel is it is a trend. More people want to travel as a family, but I can tell you, if we traveled with 2 other families, and at one point I think 3 other families. My dad had dementia. We had children on the spectrum, so the ages ranged from almost 80 to just around 8, right? So you've got folks on a beach, technically in my backyard in Florida, so to speak. You're staying at a beach, at a condo or something. How do you travel well and make those memories while you have time, so that everybody feels like they have a vacation and that you don't have one person running the entire, program, typically the oldest child and or daughter, because that's who tends to be the one who's running it all. And so it doesn't have to be extreme. It could be being able to go and look at the leaves change with a loved one and bank some positive memories. Because again, I do have those experiences with hospice, end of life, skilled nursing. And so what can we fall back on to remember more than the pain at the end? And I can tell you, it matters. When my dad passed a couple of years ago, my niece, the first time she'd really lost a close grandparent or a family member, devastated, of course. And I was talking to her a couple of months later, and she was talking how much she missed Gigi. And she's like, but do you remember when we took him to the beach and he sat on the back porch eating those pretzels and we watched the dolphins?
Bank those memories. Yeah, I love that so much. Well, another fantastic episode, Andrea, and I'm really excited to keep travel bus rolling. I can always have the travel bus rolling with you. I can just feel the passion. It's so much fun.
Yeah, so I'm excited about next week. We'll piggyback this into that. So we'll talk a little bit more about getting in the weeds and what that looks like. So for those of you that watched or are going to watch, I love it. Thank you. I believe that the video shows up in places that we can get comments. So, put your comments, questions in, below. If you're watching it as a replay, put #replay. It's always cool to see who comes back to it later. And, I always try to go back and look at it and see, if somebody put something, and then I can either answer there or we can try to get in touch.
Love it. Awesome. Well, I hope everybody has a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.